Hey everybody, I just want to do a quick video here showing the differences between the European and the GFS and why you see such starkly different solutions around day 9 when you get the big storm in the Gulf of Maine on the European and nothing to be found on the GFS. And the key is going to be what happens with a storm at day 5 that goes out to sea. First of all, though, before I show this map here, which I'm going to get back to in a second, I want to just show you how similar the blocking is. This is day 7 on the GFS here. I can back it up to day 5 here. So this is 120 hours on the GFS. See this huge Greenland block over here. And you run it forward to day 6, 144 hours. Huge block still sitting there. You run it forward to day 7, huge block still sitting there. So the GFS has a huge block, a huge Greenland block. And the Euro, which will be 24-hour increments here, has the same thing. You've got huge block on the west side of Greenland. I mean, maybe you can find slight differences where the block is ever so slightly more to the east on the Euro there. You see, but the main idea of a big block is in place on both models. But you don't just need the blocking to get a big storm back over the Northeast. You need traffic in between the block. You need the flow to actually back up. The first thing is this sort of blocks the intersection, so to speak, but you need the traffic to back up to a point where the block is actually useful if you want to see a big storm. And this is where the European and the GFS model differ. So the GFS takes this little piece of energy, it's almost hard to see, well off the Carolina coast, and this is day 5, and then as we extend out to day 6, just kind of sends it almost due east, out over really towards Bermuda, and doesn't really make much of it. This is the European model now at day 5, and it does something slightly different. You see here, it's got it tucked a little bit closer to the coast, and when we jump forward 24 hours here in this increment, watch what happens. Boom! It blows it up off of Nova Scotia. This is the entire difference. This is the key difference between the European and the GFS. Right here, European, GFS. Look at the GFS, very, very weak, way out to sea, nothing going on. Euro has a big storm off Nova Scotia. And this storm off of Nova Scotia that the European has ends up becoming a 50-50 low, which blocks this area here off of southeast Canada and backs up the entire flow. And the way you can, where it really, really shows up is with this system back here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. You see, here's the European. GFS has a similar idea at day 6 with that, they have the same piece of energy coming into the Gulf of Mexico. But now watch what happens on the GFS. Remember, there's nothing really in the way because the GFS didn't really develop the system. And as you go forward over the next 24 hours, that energy in the Gulf races east. See, I'll show it again. Here it is in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And by day 7 here at hour 168, it's off of the Carolina coast and sort of runs away. Your other system that the European blew up over here doesn't even really become much of anything. It just kind of gets spits out in the middle of the Atlantic. And because now you got all this room over here, the GFS can shoot this system off the Carolina coast. But watch what happens on the European. Because this system is here, the flow gets backed up. And watch how little the Gulf of Mexico over here moves in a day. This is day 6. Day 7. It's basically stationary. And because this energy holds back, because this up here, this piece that blew up originally on the European model becomes the 50-50 low up over Newfoundland. Now, this is forced to stay in park for 24 hours over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and this system up here is then allowed to come down and phase with it. And then if we run this forward on the European model, you see now the Gulf energy starts to eject, but it's being caught from behind by this piece of energy that's diving south from Alberta and Saskatchewan into the Great Lakes. And by the time you get to day 9, this is day 8, and then by the time you get to day 9, you got a storm up the East Coast. And even here on the European, it doesn't fully phase. You can see there's a lot of energy still hanging off to the east on the European model. But if I switch to, this is the 500 millibar, but if we switch to the actual, to the low pressure, you can see even on this map here, so we'll go back, here's your Gulf of Mexico system down here, system diving out of Canada up here. They start to come together a little bit, lots of energy, and then they partially phase here into 983 millibars off of Cape Cod at day 9 on the Euro. And remember, you can see these other little kind of circles over here, the other low pressures. that is indicative of this other energy that's over here. So if you actually backed up the flow a little more, if this storm back at day 6 got even stronger or moved a little slower, or was more amped up, you could theoretically back this up even further. So maybe instead of just sitting here for 24 hours, it might sit there for 36, and then it might only be off of South Carolina instead of North Carolina by the time you get into day 8 here, and then you could have a more violent phase off of New England by the time you get to day 9, which would be Sunday, the 26th, as noted up here. Long way to go. Not easy to tell who is right, although because the key piece of energy here happens in the day 5, day 6 range, back right here, day 5, day 6, where the euro blows up the system, that usually is the euro's wheelhouse. So if you want storm and if you want a storm and you want to snow, particularly for New York and New England, I don't know if you're going to really be able to get anything south of I-80, but particularly north of I-80, if you want a decent early season snow dump, this is something to watch because this system right here holds the key. You got the Greenland block. We know the models agree on that. You need this piece over here to back up the flow, and the Euro shows something pretty interesting. So we're going to have to watch and see how that plays out. For now, I guess we'll just see what the ensembles show and watch the model tonight. All right.